Hello, guys. Welcome back to another exciting episode on the show. Uh, it's been a pleasure to have you guys once again, my audience on the show. You guys know this podcast is designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And today we have Kelly Sheets on the show today. So our guest today is Kelly Sheets. Kelly is a very special guest. So Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I would like you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Not really sure where to start. I am Appalachian, born and bred from a little corner of Virginia, the southwest corner. I am a researcher by heart and a therapist by trade, and I love dogs, foxes, and axolotls.
All right, thank you so much. So today's guest is a clinical mental health counselor who has spent nearly a decade working as a therapist. Kelly holds an MA in clinical mental health counseling from East Tennessee State University and currently works with PTSD and obsessive compulsive disorder at Brightside Health. She's also a member of the International OCD Foundation and has a background in social psychological research with work published in behavioral research methods. But Kelly brings another important perspective to the conversation. She's passionate about bringing awareness to our home region of Central Appalachia and challenging some of the assumptions and stereotypes surrounding the people and communities there. Today, we are going to talk about PTSD, OCD, treatment, stalking, law enforcement, mental health, and the way geography and stereotypes can shape how people are perceived and understand. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so let's start with PTSD and OCD. What initially drew you to working with these particular populations?
So, when I initially went to school, I studied PTSD from bachelor's to master's, primarily because I grew up with my dad having been a Vietnam veteran. He's still with us. That sounds like past tense, and I didn't mean for it to, but he's still with us. But growing up with him and experiencing what that was like, I was curious. And, I'd spent a lot of time with other veterans in my life, friends and, significant others. And it was interesting to me. And then, as, fate would have it, ironically, I ended up going through my own trauma and developing it myself. I was born with OCD. I didn't study it, significantly while I was in school. I did study it, but not as much as I studied PTSD. But lived experience and then going through extensive training on treatment kind of took me in that direction as well.
Okay, so what is your preferred or go-to treatment approach for PTSD, OCD, and related conditions? And why do you believe they are effective?
Great question. I operate from I operate basically from an existential therapeutic foundation primarily, and then I build off of that. I typically use prolonged exposure with some trauma-informed CBT for PTSD. And then I use ERP and some ICBT-informed treatment for OCD. And I do that because of several reasons. The biggest reason being that the things that we are afraid of, we avoid. And it is in that avoidance that the fear grows stronger. Our brains, and I will never forget this, in one of my classes, a professor said that as counterintuitive as it may seem, in our nightmares and our flashbacks, our brains are trying to help us heal by getting us to remember and to habituate to the thing that we are afraid of. And that's what exposure does. And so when I work with people who experience both, what I am trying to do is help them develop distress tolerance and help them realize that they don't have to run from the memories or from the fear, that if they sit with it long enough, they can understand and learn that the body's natural inclination is to not tolerate that distress. It will come down. If you imagine a bell curve, it will come down the other side eventually. It doesn't always feel that way because you're in the moment and you're like, oh my God, this is awful. But eventually, you'll habituate to it, and over time, it will lessen. I've done it myself. I never ask anybody to do anything that I haven't done myself or wouldn't do myself because I think that's just rude. But it does work. And with the OCD, one of the most important things to remember is that a lot of the things that we fear, the thoughts that get stuck, are ego dystonic, so that it's against our value system. So what I like to look at, which incorporates a bit of the ICBT-informed therapy, is our value system. Why is this going against our values? Why are we afraid of it? What bothers us about this? And I like to kind of dig into that particular part of, the client's value system. What are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of people thinking that you're a bad person? Are you afraid of thinking that you're a bad person, or so on and so forth? And if so, why? What's really behind that?
All right. So, Kelly, there are a lot of misconceptions about OCD. What do people commonly get wrong about what OCD actually looks like?
I love that. Thank you for asking that. I have seen so many people think that people with OCD are immaculately clean. A lot of people aren't. And that they love keeping things. It's got to be certain things. It just has to be just right. And now here's the thing. So there are different themes, and just right is one of them. And so there are some people out there who have to have things just right. But when people say, I have a touch of the OCD, what they're usually referring to is that my house has to be clean. I have to have things, fluffed or whatever. And it's become such a buzzword that what they're not really recognizing is that this is debilitating. And the difference between that is that people who have to have their house in a specific order can leave their house without fear. People with OCD can't. They can't leave their house, for instance, if it's not in a specific order until it feels correct. For an example, that's just one example. And so that is a common misconception. that people often think it's about cleanliness or orderliness, and they leave out the part of the fear. I can't do this thing. I'm incapacitated until it's just correct, or until I feel safe, or until it feels clean, or whatever the threat is there, or the pressure that I feel is alleviated.
Okay. So how is treating OCD different from simply reassuring someone who is experiencing anxiety or intrusive thoughts?
It's actually really not. Exposure and response prevention therapy treats anxiety just the same as it does OCD. It exposes people to what they fear and helps them learn that they can ride out that anxiety, that they don't have to do anything like to make themselves feel better. If they just sit with it long enough, they can learn that they have what it takes on the inside to just let it pass. So ERP treats anxiety, it treats panic disorder, it treats most of the anxiety disorders, actually.
Okay, so you have experience working with people dealing with stalking. What should someone understand if they are being stalked or persistently harassed?
This is something that I'm very passionate about. First and foremost, document everything, because no one else is going to do that for you. And it depends upon where you are. I can't speak about other countries, but I can speak about America. And in America, you need to trust that law enforcement is not going to be an effective tool for you. And I hate to say it, but it's true. So document everything. I have lived experience with this. Document everything. Video, camera, written, document everything. Find a family justice center. Get a therapist. Contact your family. Have a code word if you need to, in case something happens, so that you can send that to your family so they know to contact somebody for you. But most importantly, trust yourself. Do not gaslight yourself into thinking that this isn't happening.
All right. So how can someone distinguish between a genuine safety concern and anxiety that is amplifying a perceived threat, particularly when someone already has a history of trauma or OCD?
Can you repeat the question for me?
Tell us how someone can distinguish between a genuine safety concern and anxiety that is amplifying a perceived threat, particularly when someone already has a history of trauma or OCD.
People who are being stalked are the stalker typically wants the person to know that they are being stalked, but they don't want other people to know that it's them. So a lot of it is documentation and constant reporting. And
I think you didn't get the question.
I'm sorry?
The question is, how can we distinguish between a safety concern, when you have a safety concern, and anxiety that is amplifying the threat? That's the question. Difference between a safety concern when there's an actual safety concern and just an anxiety that is amplifying the threat.
And that's where I'm going. When people are stalked, the stalker typically wants the person to know that it's them. So they make sure that the individual is very much aware that it's them. So there will be physical, or typically are physical components to it. There will be texts, or there will be Facebook messages, social stuff, things left at the house, so on and so forth. OCD tends to come with a lot of what ifs. I like to call what iferys. What if this is this? And what if this is that? And what if this? But it doesn't have a lot of actual evidentiary support to it. So with OCD, let's say that I am worried that I'm being stalked. For instance, what if I'm being stalked? I don't have a lot of evidentiary support to back that up. But if I am actually being stalked, then I'm getting text messages or strange, random Facebook messages, or I'm having things left at my doorstep, or I'm having things sent to me in the mail, things like that. So there's a big difference between OCD, what ifery, and actual harassment and stalking.
Okay, so you are from Central Appalachia. Do you believe there is a significant discrepancy between how Central Appalachia is stereotyped and what the region and its people are actually like?
Oh, absolutely. The stereotype that I grew up with and is still perpetuated is that we are very uneducated, poor, but that's true. A lot of us are, but we're not that uneducated. And the people here have lived for, I would say, centuries, being resilient, learning how to make do, relying on community, trusting each other to take care of each other. And that's what gets ignored, is that our community, our culture has survived on communal service, on caring for one another, on learning how to take very little and make a lot out of it. The one thing, well, it might not be one thing, but one of the major things I think that is a disservice as a result of that is that we don't trust very much. And so we don't seek mental health. We don't seek physical health often. So there's a discrepancy within that area. And then we have a lot of people who view us as being inherently, like I said, uneducated or poor. Again, there's a lot of that particular one that is true. There's viewing us as all of us primarily as, being inherently addicted to substances. There's a lot of substance use, but not all of us. There is a need for treatment here, yes, but it doesn't define the area, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. So, you have also worked in social psychological research. Share with us how your research background changed the way you think about human behavior and mental health today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It actually is one of my passions. I initially, and still to this day, would love to get my PhD in social psychology. My favorite psychologist, rest in peace, Zimbardo, he studied a lot of things, the psychology of good and evil, of how human beings slip easily into roles. He was the one that did the Stanford prison experiment. How he actually was because of his research, made me interested in studying groupthink and how people become involved in gangs and terrorism and all of that stuff, and how we slip so easily into doing things that are against our nature. I studied and worked in labs that looked at self-control and how self-control is a depleting resource in the brain. We use it and then it's gone and then it replenishes. And that is something that is very important to know, because once it deplenishes until it replenishes, it's very hard for us to say no to something that's offered to us, even if we should, say no to it. Case in point, addiction. And so knowing a lot of the stuff that I've learned in social psychology across the years, it has helped me with a lot of my clients in teaching them, okay, these are the moments where you are most vulnerable, especially in addiction, especially in domestic violence, especially in so many areas. But it also, at its very core, by the name social psychology, looks at psychology as a whole, not just psychology as a person, but as society. It's different from sociology, which is the study of society. It's the psychology of society.
All right. Finally, what's one thing you wish more people understood about PTSD, OCD, and mental health that could fundamentally change the way we respond to people struggling with them?
These are things that people don't ask for. They don't wake up one day and say, golly gee, I wish I had these. They really don't. And the people that have them really, really, really don't want them. So empathy is something that would be of benefit, not sympathy. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy says, I'm sorry for you. Empathy says, hey man, I see that you're going through something. Would you care if I sat there with you while you went through it? And I wish more people would be empathetic to people who are going through these things, not try to fix them. Let people who are trained to do that, but understand that these two specific things, PTSD, OCD, they're considered neurodivergent. Understand that. Other mental health issues, maybe so, maybe not, but all encompassing, have their own, struggles. And rather than judging, just meet people where they are, because we're all just human. We're all just on the same planet trying to do the best that we can, right? And if we could all just meet each other where we're at, I think we'd be a whole lot better off.
Okay, Kelly, thank you for joining us today on Control or Be Controlled. Today's conversations remind us that sometimes the things controlling our lives aren't obvious. They can be intrusive thoughts, trauma, fear, compulsions, assumptions, or even the stereotypes that other people place on us. Understanding what's happening beneath the surface is often the first step towards taking back control. So, before you go, how can listeners connect with you and learn more about what you do?
I have a website. It's Kel with one L sheets.com. And I am the host of Hellbilly, the Darker Side of Appalachia, which you can find on wherever your podcasts are. So come give a listen. I would love for you to like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want. So those are the main places you can find me. I'm also on Headway and Brightside.
Okay, thank you so much. And to my audience, I love you guys as always. Make sure to check out our work. Share this episode with someone who might need to hear this and learn from this. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you, Kelly. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate